Hey, this is John. Welcome back to Modern Old School Developer. So in the last episode, we worked on unit test for all of the individual components making up the main page form. But between episodes, I was doing some cleanup and I made one more test. But as you can see, that test does not work. So what did I add? Why doesn't it work? And what can we do to fix that? Let's go into movie-data-form.test. And you'll see we've got some new tests down here, checking that there are 2 combo boxes and 2 text boxes. All right, so I get the text boxes, and then I expect that the length of this array is going to be 2. Well, what's wrong with that? Well, for text boxes, nothing. There will be 2 of those. However, when we go down to our combo boxes and try to find 2, well, as you can see, it thinks there's only 1. So why does it think there's only 1? Clearly, there are 2 combo boxes here. Well, the problem is we are not waiting for both things. We are waiting for any combo box to be present on the screen. As soon as it is, this is going to complete and return. So we make one change, get 1 combo box, and this will happen. So we're only going to have 1 at any time. There will be 2 combo boxes, but this test for finding them is invalid. What we need to do is find both combo boxes. And before, we didn't have a way to do that. But I did go ahead and add label properties to all of our form elements to make sure that we have a way to find them. So let's go back into this real quick, and let's go inspect, and let's go look for Studio. And you can see it's now saying get by role combo box with a name of Studio. That's because I made this Studio the label property for this element. So we can now find it by its label. So let's go see if we can do that. So rather than finding the combo boxes, let's simply say I expect to await for a screen find by role. It's going to be a combo box, and the name is going to be Studio. All right, that looks like it ought to be good. And then I expect it to be disabled. Let's make it enabled first. We'll need one for series as well. And then we'll comment out this test, and we'll save that. And let's see what happened. Well, as expected, it didn't work, but it's not because it didn't find it. It's because it's not enabled. So our test is working properly. All we have to do is change this to be disabled, and the same thing down here, and that should fix that. All right, perfect. That cleans up that. There's one more thing I wanted to mention. When you run the test, you're seeing that it's running all of our tests. That's because I reran all the tests with this watching thing. But by default, it's only going to run tests that have changed since your last commit. So if we run npm test here, you can see it's only running that movie data form test, which is a nice optimization. It makes running your test much easier. You don't want to run every test in your whole application. So that's a nice optimization they've done. Let's go ahead and commit our changes, and then we won't run these tests anymore either. So fix the combo box count test. There we go. Now that we've done that, if we restart our test, you will see it does nothing. No tests found related to files changed since the last commit. So if we hit A, it would run all of our tests. That's what I did to get that test to run. But by default, it will only run new tests. All right, so now that we've cleared that up, what are we going to do this episode? All right, so let's go ahead and recreate our main page test so we can add some integration tests. Let's go to our movie data form and copy a few things we'll need from there. So we'll just start by copying all of this. And then let's see what we need to do. Close this off, and that should be good for that. We don't need movie data form. We don't need the mock format context. Don't need this or this. What we need is the main page. All right, that should be good for that. And let's go ahead and copy this as well, so we can have our one test. So let's see here. I want to change this to main page. And I'm thinking everything should be okay there. What else do we have? We need to import main page, so let's do that. And that should be good. So if I save this, we'll be running our main page test. Okay, it renders without errors. Perfect, we've got our main page running now. So what do I want to do over here? Well, on our main page, I want to see what happens when a user clicks on one of these movies. I want to know that our buttons get enabled. I want to know that our fields fill out in the form, our categories get selected, our actors get selected. I want to test that ability, and that is an integration test. We are testing the integration between our components. So let's start by seeing what happens if we select a movie from the list. Let's go back to our test. There is an add-on for the testing library that makes simulating user input very easy. Let's go import that. We're going to import user from, and this is going to be at testing library / user event. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to actually get our select box. So let's say it fills out our form when a movie is selected. All right, we'll make this a function, and I'm sure that it's going to need to be an async function. We'll be waiting on a few things definitely in here. So what's the first thing we want to do? Well, I'd like to make sure that all of our stuff is loaded. A user would not start clicking on things before these things are loaded. Probably. But our testing thing is a bit too fast. So I want to wait for all of these loading things to be done. And if we hit refresh, you can see that briefly it says loading ... on several pieces. So I want to wait for all of those components to go away. And that should indicate that everything has been loaded. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to get another thing from over here. It's going to be wait for element to be removed. So I want to wait for all of our elements to be removed before I continue. So we're going to await, and we're going to say wait for element to be removed. It takes a function, and all I want to do is screen.get all by role. It's going to be a heading, and the name is going to be loading. Okay, so basically I should be able to get that. So first, we want to make sure we actually have that. So let's go ahead and extract this, and let's move it out. So const loading elements equals this. And why don't we just say, how many should there be? There should be, several at least, but definitely more than one. So loading will be here, 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 and here. So that should be 5 things. Let's see if we have 5 elements that say loading. So let's just do a console log loading elements.length, and then we're going to wait for them all to go away. So there we go. Wait for elements to be removed. So let's save that and see what it does. All right, I didn't quite think that through, but I can't extract this from the main thing because it's going to have to rerun this to find out when they go away. Otherwise, from its perspective, they're never going to go away. These loading elements we loaded here, they're not going anywhere because we just copied them down here. So let's not worry about that. Let's just do await and get all by role inside there. And that should fix things. So let's go ahead and save that. And there we go. Everything is working now. Now, if I wanted to make sure there were 5 of those there, we could run some kind of check for that. But as for now, I think it's fine like it is. So once we've done that, we know that we have no more loading elements on here. So all we need to do now is find our select box so we can use some user input. So how are we going to select that? Let's go over here and try selecting it. And it says get by role list box. That's not very good because we have 2 list boxes on here. That's why we went to unit test last time. So that's not going to work for us. We need something more specific. And unfortunately, I don't have a label for this component. The only thing we have here is this movie list. So we can't add a label to it that easily. So what are we going to do instead? Well, this is your query selector of last resort. You shouldn't use it unless you absolutely have to. But what I'm going to do is make a special property on this select box which allows us to find it. So let's do that. Let's go back to our page and let's go into the movie list. And I want to find that select box. So I think here it is. And we're going to say data test ID equals movies list box. All right. If we have that now, and I go back over here, and I inspect this, it still thinks get by role is the best query. Well, that is the best query, but it also has test ID's movie list box. So there we can do screen get by test ID. So let's do that instead. All right, so we need to get that select box. So let's say const movies list equals await screen find by, what is that? Find by test ID. There it is. And we're just going to get movies list box. All right, that should be good for that. So now we have our movies list. How do we select an element from our list? Well, all we have to do is use our user input. So we can do user dot, and you might think it would be a click, but no. We actually want to do the select options. This is how we select from a select box. So we're going to say movie list, not movie list, movies list, and I want to give it the option. If it's a multi-select, you can use an array, but we only have one thing in here. And we'll select element 2 right now. All right, so that should be good. So if we hit save there, and I have typoed that, it should just be find by test ID, not find all. Okay, that looks better. So now we have selected our ID. Let's see what happens with that. All right, so we're not getting any failed tests, but it is giving us a warning. We have captured a request without a matching request handler. So we don't have a mock service worker endpoint for this. So let's go ahead and make one. I moved mock service worker down here to msw.typescript. So let's go grab this real quick. Just going to copy and paste this. So right over here after movies or before it, I'll add this REST endpoint. So it is movies/2. And you'll see it's going to return an ID of 2. The file name will be Beauty and the Beast. Name, Beauty and the Beast. Actors is not right, but it matches one of the actors that's in our dummy data right now. And it doesn't matter. I just need some dummy data. Categories, I put fantasy. That's one of our categories. Series, there isn't one. I put null. Same thing for series number. And then studio was ID 1, which is Disney. All right, so there's that. So that should be good. So if we add that, you should see it's no longer complaining. Perfect, just what we wanted. So now that we can select something from our list and mock our data return, I want to find more elements on the page and make sure that the data that's in them looks correct. So let's see what we can do about that. The first thing I'll check for is our buttons. We've got 2 buttons. We've got the update button and the remove button. when we select a movie, they should no longer be disabled. So we can go get the buttons from our test. So where is that test? That is in our movie data form test. So let's get our buttons, and that's going to be basically this right here. So let's get this button, and it's very similar to the other buttons. So I've got a remove button and update button. Let's say const remove button equals this, and const update button equals this. All right, so now I want to make sure they are enabled, but that might be delayed because when we select this, we have to go fetch things from the back end, and when it comes back, then tell Formic to change our state. So just like we have this wait for element to be removed, we have another function that's called wait for. So we can await wait for, and it took it from testing library. That's fine, that's where it is really, but we'll take it from our endpoint here. So we're going to wait for, it takes a function, and we are going to wait for the expectation that our update button is enabled. Okay, we'll do the same thing for our remove button. And let's make sure both of those actually work. In fact, why don't we change one of them to be disabled, and we'll have one failed and one correct. So if we go back over here, hey, it failed this one. 14 passed, but 1 failed. So our update said to be disabled. That's no good. It has actually enabled. So let's change that. And now everything is good. Cool. Just what I wanted to see. So what else should we do? Why don't we grab these input components and make sure they were filled out? So our input for the name should be Beauty and the Beast. And for series number, it should be empty. So let's go make sure those things are happening. So Beauty and the Beast is kind of a special case. We have a handler or a query that can get things by their display value. So we can say const movie name equals screen dot find by display value, and that display value is going to be Beauty and the Beast. And if we have that, it should be able to get that. All we have to do is await, because again, this might take time. And let's go make sure that happens. So we'll get that. And if we have it, then we're good. We know we filled out the form properly. So let's save that. It'll rerun our test. And there we go. They all passed. Perfect. It's still there. And you can see if we put it as Beauty and the Best, that test will now fail. So we didn't find that value. Perfect. We didn't want that value. Now, other values are going to be a bit more difficult because the rest of the values for all of these select boxes and category checkboxes are just going to be numbers. So we probably don't want to use get by display value for those. Beauty and the Beast was a unique value that we could search for, but a value like 1 or 2 might not be unique. Instead, we're going to need to find the actual element for Studio and Series. So why don't we do that next? So let's say the Studio combo box, which we need to cast or tell it that it's an HTML select element. Otherwise, we won't have some of the properties we need. And that's going to be await screen.find by label text this time. And we're going to get our label, and the label is going to be Studio. All right, so we have that. And we'll do the same thing for our series combo box. And this one's going to be series. And there, we should now have our Studio and series combo box. So what are the values going to be? Well, the values should be the values from our mock data. So Studio will be the ID for that, and series will be the ID for that. So if we go over to our MSW and look at what we're returning, we can see that our series is null, but null won't be the value. It's going to be the ID value that we get inside this thing. So it's going to end up being none. So if we inspect this, we will see that the first value here is none. And the value for that is just an empty string. All right, so let's go see if we can make sure that happens. So I want to see that series combo box has a blank value. To do that, all we have to do is expect series combo box dot value to be the empty string. And that should be correct. We'll even put some garbage in there to make sure it works. Now the next one is going to be our studio combo box. And in this case, the value is going to be 1, which is the studio value for Disney. If we go look back there, we'll see that we got studio ID 1, which is Disney. All right, let's go back to our test, and we see that we have 1 failing. Perfect, just what I wanted to see. So our 2b of this, well, obviously we weren't going to find that. So let's go ahead and make sure that the actual value is a blank. So just turn that back to blank, and hopefully our test becomes correct. There we go. All our tests have passed now. Perfect. What else do we have? Well, that's this part of the form. What about our categories? Can we check if a category is selected? Well, we should be able to do that. So over here on our selector, you can see that they have name. So we can now get by role checkbox with the name of the category. So that's what we can do to check on that. Let's go ahead and cancel that. And let's go find our checkbox. So what do we have for our categories? We've got fantasy over here. So that should be selected. Let's go find the checkbox and make sure that it is. So let's say const category equals await screen find by role, and the role is going to be a checkbox, and the name is going to be fantasy. So that should be our checkbox. But what we want to see is if category is checked. And you can see that it doesn't think we have this value. We need to make sure this is an HTML input element, not like that, input element. And now we have our checked property. So now we can find out if it is. So first we'll get our checkbox, and then I expect our category checkbox dot checked, no, not like that, sorry, expect category dot checked to be true. All right, that should be good for our category. We'll go ahead and run that and make sure it works. Hey, we found something. So let's test to make sure we didn't get a fluke, and let's test that it's false. Okay, that is no longer successful. So perfect. Our fantasy thing is true, which should be correct. All right, now only thing that's left is our actors. So I want to find an option box that's over in this. So what actor did I say is on there? I said Elijah Wood is in Beauty and the Beast for some reason. So let's go see about testing that. So I need to find an option element that has Elijah Wood. But we might run into a problem because Elijah Wood is going to be on our available actors as well. So we'll have to see what happens when we try this out. So why don't we start by saying const actor selected equals await screen.find by role. This is going to be an option, and we want the name property to be Elijah Wood. So let's go ahead and see what happens there. And we have a problem. So what's going on with this? Did we not find Elijah Wood? We found multiple Elijah Woods, and that is our problem. We need to make sure we're finding the right Elijah Wood, or at least the right number of Elijah Woods. So we will always have Elijah Wood in our available actors. If he's in selected as well, that means we'll have 2 of them now. So let's go make sure that we do have 2 of them. We can use the same thing, but we'll say find all by role. And this will now be an array. And all we have to do is we expect actors selected dot length to be 2. And if that's true, then Elijah Wood is in our selected actors. So let's hit save and go back to our test. And there we go. All of our tests are passing. And that's pretty much everything for integration test on our main page. We can select a movie and it fills out all of our forms. We get our data back and everything's looking pretty good. So it could be cleaned up a little bit with the mock data, but honestly, it's not that important that the data makes sense in your mock data, just that it matches whatever values you expect. In fact, realistically, it would probably be better if I put some more obvious placeholder data in our mock data rather than supplying actual names that might be confused with a real backend server. I might do that. I don't know. For now, I'm not going to worry about it. So, I think that's a good wrapping up point for today's episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the like button. Help the channel out. And I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.